We're going to be talking about stand-up today, you guys. What's up, everybody? Rivera here, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world. Before we get started, please make sure you hit the like button, comment when I get on your nerves, and subscribe so you know the next time I'll be getting on your nerves. All right, guys, so I had a couple questions from a friend of mine from a long time ago. His name's Wayne. What's happening is Wayne has acquired some popularity on TikTok. He wants to start doing stand-up. I know this is also the same time of year because we've got New Year's coming up where a lot of people start thinking about doing stand-up all together. And so I figured if I could just answer here, then it would be an easier way than me having to answer everybody individually, because around this time of year, I usually start getting a lot of people hitting me up just asking me how they get started in stand-up. So I'm going to go over a little bit of that. I'll try not to make it too long, and I'll try not to include too many personal stories. But in order for me to really talk about it, I kind of do have to bring up some personal stories because everybody's way of doing stand-up is different, and there really is no right way to do it. A lot of people will tell you, these are the rules for stand-up, and you can't talk about this, and you can't say this. And I don't live that way when it comes to stand-up. When it comes to me and stand-up, I will say anything I think is funny. I will make that into a joke. I will make it work. So just right off the bat, know that, and know that I'm not going to be putting rules on you. I'm going to give you what has worked for me, and then from there, you figure it out for yourself. The first thing I want to mention is don't get overwhelmed when it comes to your first time, because it's going to go one of two ways is what it comes down to. You're either going to do really well or you're going to eat it. You either do well or you don't, and that's what it is. So don't get too overwhelmed when it comes to that, and don't take it too hard if you don't do well, and don't let your chest puff out too much if you do well, because a lot of times that's beginner's luck, and you might get away with that for 2 or 3 times, and then you're going to experience what we call bombing. That is going to happen no matter how good you are. Eventually you are going to experience bombing. Everybody has bombed at least once or not done as well as they usually do. So don't get too in your head about that kind of stuff. When it comes to stand-up, there are certain time markers you want to worry about as far as the amount of time that you do when you're getting started. We can get to the others later, but for right now, let's start with the beginning ones. To me, those are 3, 5, 7, and 10. Those are the amounts of time you want to be able to do. A lot of times when you're first starting out, like if you go to the Comedy Store or the Laugh Factory and you do their open mic, Comedy Store is 3.5 minutes. Laugh Factory was 3 minutes. I don't know if it still is. I haven't done the open mic there for a long time, but it was 3 minutes. Then 5 minutes is very common for just a basic open mic at like a bar or a coffee house. A lot of times it's going to be 5 minutes. 7 minutes is when you get a little bit more to the showcase. A lot of times that'll be 7 minutes. Or if they don't have that many comedians in your area, you'll get a 7-minute set, and then you work your way up to the 10. It's like working out. It's like running. It's like anything else. At first, you're not going to be able to do that much time, and then you're going to figure it out, and then you're not going to know what to do with short amounts of time. But do keep those in mind. So let's just start off with like 3 minutes. So if you're thinking about like doing 3 minutes of stand-up, you're just starting out, or you're even thinking about doing 5 minutes of stand-up, what you want to do is set up your personality, because a lot of times people think they're not funny or they're not going to be good at stand-up because they were able to be really funny in front of their friends, but then when it came to being in front of a crowd, they didn't do well. They couldn't figure it out. Well, that's not really something to worry too much about, because what you have to remember is your friends already know you. So think in terms of setting yourself up. What does the audience need to know about you? What is special about you? What sets you apart from other people? What are the kinds of things that you want to talk about? Like, do you want to talk about your ethnicity? Do you want to talk about your gender identity? Do you want to talk about your sexual orientation? Are you a feminist? Anything you are, I can definitely tell you that you can make funny. Think in terms of things that trigger you. Think in terms of things that people are always asking you about on the street or when they first get to know you. Think about things that are common occurrences in your everyday life. Those are things to think about, because like say you're a white guy and everybody thinks that you have white privilege, that kind of thing. Or me being Latino. There's certain things people automatically think when they find out you're Mexican. That's a lot of what my first jokes came from, was being Mexican. The fact that a lot of people think I'm Filipino. That's something else that I would talk about sometimes. So when you think in terms of those things, it gives you a way to set yourself up to the audience. Then they at least know a little bit about you. Then they start to feel like they know you. Think in terms of kind of what makes you vulnerable, or what would make people relate to you. So think in terms of that. Think in terms of what it is about you that's not perfect or you feel like could use some work. That's another way you can go at it. So you want to come up with your set, and so you want to set up your personality first so that the audience can relate to you, and then they feel like, oh, I actually like this guy, or I can relate to this guy, or this doesn't seem like a bad guy. That kind of stuff, you know? Like I said, stand-up is so personal, and you end up just finding your way. A lot of people refer to it as your voice, and you end up just finding that as you get on stage, as you write more. I would tell you, in the practicing, when it comes to practicing, do practice at home would be my advice. Right now, there's not a lot of places to go. If you got a million open mics that are available to you, then definitely do that. Different cities and different states have different regulations right now and guidelines as far as COVID goes. So maybe it'll be hard for you to get on stage. Maybe in the area you live in, there's a lot of places to get on stage. I don't know what it's like where you're at. So I would say stage time is the most important thing. But if you can't do that, when I was first starting out, I would get the remote control and I would pretend like that was the microphone. My bird, I had a bird at the time, I would put him on his stand and that was my audience. And I got used to at least knowing the words that I was supposed to say. You don't know if the audience is going to react to it or not because you're brand new. So you just want to come up with some material, write it, rehearse it. You can use a brush. I used a brush for a while, and I would just go over it. So the first time I went on stage, I realized that there's the noise around the room, and there's just different things that happen, you know, like maybe a waitress drops a drink or somebody's ordering. So then I was like, okay, well, maybe if I practice with some distractions, that'll help me be more prepared when I get on stage. And so then I started practicing with the TV on, and I would see if I could keep my concentration and say my lines, my jokes, while the TV was playing, and keep my concentration that way. So that's another thing. These are all just very basic things. And if you guys have questions, hit me up in the comments. Ask me some questions. I definitely don't mind if you guys ask questions in the comments. I'll do another one of these next week, and then we can move on to like a different part. But for right now, just remember the 3, 5, 7, and 10. Work on the 3. That's what I would say. It's the easiest. It's the shortest amount of time. Work on just doing 3 minutes. If you get to the open mic, they tell you how 5 minutes, you end up doing 3. Nobody's going to get mad at you, especially if you're brand new. You also have that going for you. So definitely tell the host, this is my first time doing it, because then they'll tell the audience this is the first time. They'll go a little bit easy on you. Some people are like, I don't want them to go easy on me. Let them go easy on you. The first time, let them go easy on you. You need it. Trust me. You're going to be dealing with a little bit of stage fright. Not everybody's used to public speaking. Even if you're used to public speaking, it still throws you off because now you have the expectation of having to make these people laugh. So trust me. Let them go easy on you. So here are the questions that Wayne had asked. There are 2 different questions. Well, it's one question. He asked me twice, phrased different ways, and it was because I was slow about responding. But I feel like I'll read both questions, and then I think it'll be basically one answer. So the question was phrased the first time. How do you take your traumas and convert them into a funny joke without sounding narcissistic or just plain sad? You said you're a fan of mine, Wayne. I don't worry about sounding narcissistic. I don't think in those terms because your personality has everything in it, right? So if you're worried about sounding narcissistic, it's probably because you have a little bit of narcissism, and there's nothing wrong with loving yourself as long as you balance that out, and as long as the audience knows that you're joking. In a lot of cases when you're first starting out, a good way to let them know that you're joking is just by smiling a lot so that they know these are jokes. I'm not serious about these. The way that you deliver things, the tone and the inflection is what's going to really help you out with this. But in the beginning, you usually don't have a lot of control over tone and inflection just because you're dealing with stage fright, you have a little bit of nerves, maybe your heart is in your throat, especially when you're first on stage, and it's all magnified because it's your first time and you're not used to doing it. So you're going to learn to use tone and inflection, but in the beginning, a cheat is to just smile through the whole thing, or through especially the dark parts. Remember to smile. Make sure that, like I said, you're practicing at home, so when you get on stage, you're at least comfortable with the words, even if you're not comfortable with the situation. That would be my advice on that. As far as sounding sad, I feel like that's endearing when you sound a little bit sad when you say certain things. So I don't think there's anything wrong with sounding a little bit sad. You just want to make sure that you have that punchline down. A lot of times if you sound kind of sad, that can be helpful because that can provide the valley so that you hit the mountain. Like you take the audience down with your sadness, and then if you have a good punchline and you again smile through that, or if you just add some inflection on the punchline, they know it's a punchline, then they're gonna laugh with you. So don't worry about sounding sad, especially if you're talking about something that is kind of sad. It shows a human side of you, in my opinion, and so I don't worry about that. And like I said, when it comes to the narcissism, if you sound a little full of yourself but your intention is what a lot of times audiences can read. And I know that sounds silly and it seems like a crazy idea, but the audience is a lot smarter and a lot more intuitive than you're probably giving them credit for, or you're going to give them credit for. That's what I found. When you're joking and your heart is in the right place, I really do feel like an audience can read that. So I don't really worry about that. Certain jokes that I say and certain things that I say make it sound like I'm fooling myself. And that's not really something I'm worried about because I know that in my actual personality, there is balance. So I just deliver the joke in what I think is going to be the best way possible, and then I adjust it as we go. Other thing I will tell you is make sure you record the audio at least. Don't worry about video. That can be a little bit clunky for the first couple of times, especially if you're trying to figure out where to put your phone. Don't stress yourself about that. Just put on the voice memo on your phone and record so you can hear yourself, because you'll find that a lot of times if you take out even a single word, or sometimes the way you said something, or sometimes the way you used your voice, like you go up and down, then that will help, and you'll be able to hear that on the recording. Or sometimes you'll listen to it and you'll be like, I sound angry when I say that, and that's why the joke's not going over. Or you mentioned sad. Sometimes you'll be like, I sounded a little bit too sad, like maybe I need to do something to pep that up. And that's something you'll figure out with your own personality, because again, stand-up is a personal thing. You're dealing with your personality. You're dealing with your sense of humor. That's unique to you. Then he phrased it a little bit of a different way, and he was like, how do you tell your traumas to a point where they are funny instead of sad and self-deprecating? Again, we talked about the sad. So when it comes to self-deprecating is also endearing. I really wouldn't worry about self-deprecating in a negative way. I think self-deprecating is actually a lot of fun in different cases. And again, that's going to endear you to the audience. So if they feel like, oh, this guy has a sense of humor about himself, this guy actually is willing to poke a little bit of fun at himself, and he doesn't take himself too seriously, that's a good thing in my opinion. Self-deprecation is a very important tool when it comes to stand-up. That's what I would tell you as far as your questions go. And I hope that answers it for you. But if it doesn't, or if I wasn't clear enough, or maybe you don't like the way you phrased the question, feel free, like I said, to post in the comments what your question is, or a follow-up, or something that you want me to expand on. This is just me trying to give you guys just a quick, as good as I can, first lesson in stand-up. Some people are going to try to sell you stand-up lessons, and there's nothing wrong with that. If you want to pay somebody to help you out, Venmo me, Ty Rivera-comedy, Cash App me, Ty Rivera. That's another way you can give me some money. You can also click on the Amazon link below. I will get a little bit of candy money. If you're going to buy some stuff from Amazon anyway, you might as well buy it through my Amazon and click on the link for the Whimzees Alligators. If you want to buy Bijou some Whimzees Alligators, Bijou's always down for some alligators. You can also do that. Click the link below.